Coaster Milestones, something that us coaster fans keep track of. And in this video, I thought it would be kind of fun to touch on some of the coaster milestones I've had so far. Now, I've only ridden 40 roller coasters, so I won't be able to talk about my 50th, 100th, 200th, etc. credits. But I can talk about some of the fun memories I've had thus far, and I encourage all of you to comment down below some of the coaster milestones you've experienced. So, let's jump right into the video. Let's kick it off with an obvious milestone, my first coaster, which I think was Cobra at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. We aren't totally sure, but for what it's worth, this is the first coaster I have memories of riding. Even though I haven't ridden it in a long time, it's a decent family coaster, and it was my first Zier. If Cobra was my first, then Roadrunner Express would have been my second. This would have been my first ever Zamperla coaster. Kicking it up a couple notches, let's talk about my first Woody and GCI Roar. This is a ride that's no longer in operation because it was RMC'd and now is Joker, but it was really fun. A little rattly, but really fun. My first Vekoma and first inverting coaster was Boomerang Coast to Coaster, which honestly I don't have very many memories of, except I was really scared the first time. Speaking of older, kinda janky looping coasters, Demon was the first coaster I ever rode from Aerodynamics. This is located at California's Great America. And while I don't love the ride now, I do have some fond memories of it from my first rides on it. It has some roughness in the corkscrews, but ultimately it's okay. My first Intamin I always find hilarious. For a company that's known for building Giga and Strata coasters, my first Intamin was Woodstock Express. This family coaster is a decent size and it's a good stepping stone from Lucy's Krabby Cabbies. B&M have built some insane coasters, but my first was one of the originals, Patriot at California's Great America. I have a separate review going into more detail, but I'll give you the highlights. Patriot is an okay looping coaster. It's a floorless model, and while it has some good maneuvers like the vertical loop and corkscrew, a lot of the ride feels kinda boring and filler. I understand it was one of B&M's first coasters that they built, but it hasn't aged particularly well. I think you should ride it when you're at the park, but it's not going to be your favorite ride there. It serves this purpose, and it was alright for my first B&M. I actually had a lot of fun on it on my first rides. While we're on the topic of B&M, let's talk about my first ever inverted roller coaster, Flight Deck. Flight Deck, I'm not going to lie, is completely awesome, but I think the people at Knott's Berry Farm can hear this ride's roar. It's very loud, but it's very fun. I remember being hesitant to go on it, but ultimately I had a great time. This fighter jet themed coaster holds up quite nicely. But in February of 2020, I finally visited the Disneyland Resort and rode my first launch coaster, the Incredicoaster. This was one of my top bucket list coasters going in, and after I rode it, at the time, it became my second favorite roller coaster of all time, behind Gold Striker. I also have a full review on this coaster, and while it isn't in my top 3 anymore, I still enjoy it a lot. It's a coaster that can be ridden by pretty much anybody. As for the launch itself, it's not bad. The first time I rode it, I was surprised that it was as forceful as it was. Looking back on it now, I don't think it's a very forceful launch, but you definitely do feel the acceleration. This is what a family-friendly launch coaster should be. The ride has onboard audio that tells a story, and it's very, very iconic. This is also one of the most photogenic roller coasters in the world. But anyways, there's my love letter to Incredicoaster. Time to move on. On a more minor note, in the same park, Goofy Sky School was the first ever coaster I rode from Mock Rides. And while it's just a Wild Mouse, it's one of my favorites of the genre. My first Vekoma was at the same resort, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. This was a fantastic introduction to what Vekoma could do. And to this day, Thunder Mountain remains one of my favorite family coasters between the smoothness, laterals, bits of airtime, and rock theming. You may notice all of these coasters are from California, and my first non-California coaster was Expedition Everest. And I couldn't think of a better coaster to hold that title. Expedition Everest is like Thunder Mountain on steroids. It is so epic. And while it is certainly not perfect, it is one of the, if not the, best themed coaster in the world. A company I had heard so much about was RMC, but I didn't get to ride one of their coasters until last year, Railblazer at CGA. And I instantly knew why coaster enthusiasts fell in love with this company, because oh my goodness, Railblazer is absolutely insane. But for that, I absolutely love it. And it dethroned Gold Striker as the best coaster in the park. Speaking of Woodies, let's talk about Ghost Rider, which is my first and currently only CCI coaster credit. And while I only have 3 rides on it, all those 3 rides were impeccable, especially the one at night. This is regarded by many to be the best coaster Custom Coasters International ever built, and I can see why. Ghost Rider is a masterpiece. It's long, smooth, has a great layout, has great airtime moments, great laterals, great trains. There really isn't anything that Ghost Rider does wrong, and that's why it's one of my favorite coasters of all time. Let's stick in the same park for a few more entries, starting with my first ever Schwarzkopf, Montezuma's Revenge. And I'm sure I absolutely butchered the manufacturer's name, so I'm very sorry. Anyways though, Montezuma's Revenge is really fun. It's like a grilled cheese sandwich. It's so simple, and yet it never disappoints. I hope this classic sticks around for a long time. I always wondered what a spinning coaster would feel like, but now I know. Sierra Sidewinder. This is a mock spinner, and instead of facing inward like the Gerstlauer ones, it's more like the Mauer spinners, facing out and giving you a view of your surroundings. I've ridden Sierra Sidewinder twice now, and I enjoyed both rides on it tremendously. It's honestly probably too intense to be located in the Planet Snoopy area, but other than that, I have no complaints with this mock spinning coaster. And remember, if you want to spin more, offset the weight in the vehicle, because if you do, you can really spin. And then earlier this year, my first ever Gerstlauer, my first vertical lift hill, and my first beyond vertical drop, hang time. And I gotta say, I was a little freaked out the first time we rode this, but overall, over the 3 rides we got on it, I thought it was quite fun. The first drop gives a sweet pop of ejector airtime if you're sitting in the back row, and for the most part, it's decently smooth too. So there you go, now we're caught up to today. As I said in the beginning, I'm only 10 credits away from 50, which is really exciting. As for what that 50th coaster might be, I have absolutely no idea. But it's been very fun to ride the 40 coasters I've ridden so far in my life. I hope that my first international park could be something amazing, something like Phantasialand, Europa Park, or even Energylandia, all really cool places. But I guess let's start with getting 50 coaster credits. But I'd love to hear from you guys and what milestones you've had over the years. And assuming you like roller coasters, which I presume you do since you're watching this video, keep riding them and keep having fun on them. And keep achieving more coaster milestones. But hey, that's gonna do it. Thank you all for watching. See you all next time.